Coming up on the program, we're going to top off some of our containers with our leftover plant starts. And I'll show you the secrets to growing eggplant in containers. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored by the following. MIgardener.com with over 450 varieties of non-GMO, heirloom, organic flowers, vegetables, and herb seeds, all for 99 cents. MIgardener.com. HappyLeafLED.com, a commercial-grade grow light with a home gardener's affordability. All indoors, no fans, no motors, simply plug in and grow. Great for seed starting, to lettuce, to full-grown tomatoes. HappyLeafLED.com.
Sustain Natural Fertilizer, offering superior organic plant foods that deliver research-proven results. Trusted by farmers, growers, and gardeners for 30 years. Learn more at sustain.com.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joey Baird. We are planting in our High Five Root Maker grow containers here some of the remaining plant starts we have. We've got about 10 of these in the garden, so we're going to finish topping those off. But I want to show you how to plant a tomato in a container here. And this is the same for a bucket with holes in the bottom or any type of container. You want to have a lot of soil that you're putting in the container. Now with tomatoes here, I've got this makeshift cage because we're running short. It gives the plant some support to grow, and that's what is important here. So we want to move back the soil that we have here. Dig a nice hole there. We're going to add some Sustain fertilizer. Work that in. Now the key to this is to keep these hydrated. And you can put a pan or a plate underneath it to allow the water to wick up. Or you can actually put drip emitters over these as well. So you saw what I did. I filled the hole in because I don't want to have a whole lot of contact, as much. I want to have a little contact with the fertilizer and plant. I don't want to have direct contact. And with a container, what you might find at the end of the season, that your root ball is very, very small, and you're thinking, well, what has happened? Nothing grew, or the plant didn't expand the root system like it's supposed to. Well, if you've got good enriched compost or potting soil or potting mix in your container that contains nutrients, the plant is not going to reach out and search for additional areas for root development or root exploration. Everything that's needed is right there in the root hole. Now in the garden here, they may root out, find more nutrients, dig deep, because they're looking for specific amounts of nutrients. In a container or pot, you may have everything you need if you have a good balanced compost or potting mix, everything you need right in the one spot, so it can concentrate on growing instead of exploration of the roots. So now, I've got several Moscow tomatoes here. I'm going to just plant one in this container because one is the equivalent, this is a High Five or the equivalent of a 5-gallon bucket, and we don't want to crowd these tomato plants. We want to give them adequate support. So I'm just going to loosen these up and find the largest one. These will all probably get planted, but we'll find the largest one and see how the soil is dry there, and I can just pull the roots apart. We'll put the rest back in there, add a little of this soil just to keep it happy for the time being. Okay. So now we want to dig and we want to see how tall that plant is. It's going to look catastrophic here, but I'm going to take all but the top canopy off. I'm going to bury everything below my fingers because I want I want the soil to touch those roots. That's not deep enough. I want the soil to touch the stem to develop roots, just like that. Now we will add some leaf matter here, some mulch. I'll bring more mulch in. And we want to keep the soil from splashing up on the plant itself. So that mulch is preventing that soil splash up, but also using whole grain yellow corn meal will help fight the bad bacteria in your soil, which is early blight. We'll apply that as well. And then we got to put the cage on here. And we found with this particular cage that the plant does kind of wind up through here a little bit. So it's only one-sided, but it works very well. So if you have some plant starts left, get some compost, put them in containers. Make sure they're deep enough, not little shallow containers, a good container, and get a few more tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, whatever you have left, planted so you have more production this summer, the end of the summer as it comes. So a way to bring worms in your garden is to add fertility to the soil. We add leaves, we add grass clippings, chemical-free grass clippings, we add coffee grounds. and we don't till. Now, the only soil disturbance we choose to do is if you're going to plant potatoes or something of that nature, you're going to have to dig a drill or a trench here. So you can use a shovel. This soil is on the moister, damp side, and we used a garden fork, and the reason why we did that was to prevent or limit the casualty of worms. Just in this cluster alone here, I've got a small worm there. Let's open this up. I got a worm there, worms there, a worm there, there's a big worm there, another couple of baby worms there, another one there. So we have a lot of worms just in that little pile of soil that I brought up. So we want to be aware of the soil, the worms that we have, and we keep them. If you don't have worms, build your soil, don't add the worms, they will come. Now there is a problem in which we personally have not seen yet in our garden, but it is been reported in the city of Milwaukee. It's called the jumping worm. We had Sharon Morris from the University Extension here in the Milwaukee area on last year, our radio program, and here's a little snippet of that interview that she describes and talks about what the jumping worm is and how you can identify it.
There is a new invasive species called the jumping worm. What is it, and what do consumers need to be aware of before they purchase soil in the state of Wisconsin?
Yeah, jumping worms are becoming a real scourge. People are pretty alarmed when they find them in their yards. They're not earthworms. We'll start with that. And you never have just one. They are in large groups, and they squirm like crazy when they are disturbed. And so we're calling them crazy worms than jumping worms. They do move around very erratically when they're disturbed. And they're also always found just below the soil surface. They don't go down into tunnels and come back up like our regular earthworms do. They come into your yard with soil in containers of plants that you've purchased from other locations, from plants that you have shared from other gardeners, and also in some of the bulk nursery products like mulches and soils. And it's often very difficult to detect that they are in those products. So a lot of caution should be used when you're purchasing those kinds of things, and even when you're bringing in new plants into your yard. Really check the root system, check the soil that's in the pot and with the plant. Like I say, they're on the top of the soil surface. They eat all of the organic matter out of the soil, and the soil ends up looking like coffee grounds. So it's really distinctive when you've got them. They look a lot like our usual earthworms, but they do have a lighter band around their body than earthworms, and that band is flat with the rest of their body, whereas our earthworms, that band that goes around them is raised, kind of raised. The biggest problem is that there's nothing you can do about them at this time. Digging that soil out and removing it won't do it. You often move them from place to place in your own yard by working in that soil, and you contaminate your tools. You'll end up having some of the very small worms, the larvae, on your tools. And in the spring, it's especially difficult because they're so small, you can't really see them. And all that's there are the cocoons that overwinter. The adults die in the winter. So it's just something to really be aware of. Be very careful when you're bringing things into your property. And for the time being, if you do discover that you have jumping worm, be very careful not to transmit it to other areas of your yard or other people's yards. Clean your tools off really well, and even your shoes and your boots where you've been working. And wait. The research is ongoing, and hopefully we will find a way to control them.
Do you know if there's any known cases in the southeast Wisconsin area or the Milwaukee County area at this point?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay.
It's in many places, many places. People who have absolutely no idea that they have them, and then they learn about them, and they start working in their soil, and lo and behold, there they are.
And once they get done with the organic matter in the soil, they start eating the roots of the plants, correct?
Well, they actually don't eat the roots of the plant, but they take so much out of the soil that the plants can't thrive.
Okay.
The roots can't thrive. So that's how they do damage to the roots, is just by their feeding on the organic matter all around the roots. The soil is absolutely amazing when they get done with it. It really, truly looks like coffee grounds.
So you may or may not have it. You need to be vigilant of that and be aware whether you're in the Milwaukee area or parts of the country, as it can be transmitted through potting mixes and plant life. Also, Mike Pogleski from the Vegetable Gardening Show, he had a representative from the University of Madison on that talked about the jumping worm and the research that's going into it. That interview is linked in the show notes below. So we want to encourage the strength and the fertility of our soil to bring the worms in. They have a tremendous power of bringing nutrients up from 8 feet deep. They can produce 1/3 pound of worm castings a year per worm, and you should have between 9 and 12 worms per cubic foot of soil in your garden if it's a good nutrient-rich soil. We have somewhere between 20 and 30 worms in our 1 square foot per soil. Power of worms makes gardening on your end a whole lot easier. So the key to growing an eggplant in a container, one, you need good and rich soil. We're using activated Purple Cow potting mix. So that's number one. Number two, you need a good size or a decent sized container. You can grow these in 1 gallon or 2 gallon or 3 gallon pot. This is a 3 gallon injection molded pot from rootmaker.com. We have eggplants growing in 1 gallon injection molded pots. If you look here, you can see it tears down, and there's holes that are placed here to air prune the roots, and that's key. Also, it being black, eggplants like a lot of root heat. If you can give them a lot of moisture, damp soil, and a lot of root heat, they're going to thrive very, very well. So what I've got here, I've got it filled up with the activated Purple Cow potting mix here. I've got a couple of eggplants. I'm going to take one. Now, these are not the largest eggplants starts that I would recommend, but this is what we have, so this is what we're going to use. Now, again, we've got the whole root structure. Unlike tomatoes, you don't want to bury these deep. You just want to do the same level in which they were in the container that you got them from. So before I do that, I'm going to put a little Sustain fertilizer in the bottom here, mix it in, and then I'm just going to make a hole, and since this is loose, it's going to work real nice. We're just going to bring it up to the level that it was in the container. Now, eggplants do not necessarily need to be caged. Some people choose to cage them. Some varieties do get large and bushy, so a cage would not be a bad thing. We've never had the issue with that, but it was always an option. We want to keep this in a well, sunny, warm area. You can also put a tray underneath here to allow the water to wick up, so it's a self-watering container, so you can have more moisture to the soil, more moisture to the roots, and make the plant healthier and happier. Again, like we talked about, warmer the soil, the warmer the roots, the happier and more productive this eggplant will be, and that's the ultimate goal. They're a slower growing plant, we have found, but that will work good. In addition, with the container, you can also mulch this with chemical-free, seed-free grass clippings, straw, leaves, even shredded paper will work well to hold the moisture in and keep the plant well hydrated in the container. Oh, and the nice thing about being in a container, if it's going to frost tonight and we're late in the fall, I can take it in, bring it back out in the morning, and try to get a little more life out of the plant. Thanks for joining me. Join me again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Baird, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.